welcome to Business Today Television. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and you're watching Easynomics. On the show today, we are chasing a slightly different subject than the normal macro and microeconomic trends that we chase. But what we are doing on the show today is equally interesting. India is now acknowledged as a global fintech superpower. The numbers are astounding. Parliament has been told that India has almost 3,085 fintech companies, and if you apply a different metric, that number almost triples. And therefore, in this very hot space of fintech, there is innovation, there is technology, and then there is Indian spirit, jugaad, as well as entrepreneurial capability. And joining me to decode the latest and the hottest trends in the fintech space, Somyajit Ghosh, the CBO of India Lens, and Mohit Bedi, the co-founder of Kiwi. Welcome to the show. The show is called Easynomics, gentlemen, and therefore we make things easy for a wider set of people to understand. And the first question, Mohit Bedi, everyone talks about the fintech space, how big it is, the funds raised, the number of companies, the kinds of innovation, and yes, it's a B2C aspect also, where a lot of people relate to fintech on a daily basis, hourly basis, because we interact with so many fintech companies. Give us an overview of whether it is justified to call India a global fintech superpower.
In fact, just calling it a global superpower is an understatement, according to me. There is so much happening. Just see the customer life cycle, right? There is B2C, there is B2B, etc. There is the likes of M2P who are changing the entire banking as a service ecosystem. There are various players in various stages of customer life cycle that Indian fintechs are trying to tap. And there is one mantra only, which is making it easier for customer, correct? B2C is the last leg where actually customer sees fintech, right? But there is lot that happens before that. There is the likes of Signzy who's making the KYC process easier, M2P who's making banking as a service easier. So you will see fintech that is touching every part of your life. There is account aggregator that is ballooning. There is ONDC that is ballooning with PhonePe taking the lead with their Postman app, etc. So I think it is an understatement when we say that it is just a global superpower. It's way beyond that, and it is hats off to the spirit of the startup ecosystem, the entrepreneurs, the risk-taking abilities that we as Indians have, is just taking it to the next level. That's my 2 cents around that.
That's a good point. 23 years ago, in a job interview, I was asked a question, and Somyajit, I am coming to you with a question that takes off from there. I was asked to explain the difference between telecom companies and IT companies, software companies. And the answer that I could come up with was that telecom was the backbone, the pipe on which all of this rode. The question I have, Somyajit, for you is that Indians interact with the e-commerce way of life on an hourly, minutely basis. Would our e-commerce have been possible and been so large and fairly successful had there not been the underpinning of fantastic fintech system? Somyajit.
You're absolutely right, Siddharth. I mean, currently what we see that at India, the fintech adoption rate is 87%, which is way higher than the global average of 64%, right? So backed by, how the UPIs have made it, how our digitization thrust is there from our government, RBI, and all other bodies. We do see a significant impact on all these e-commerce, as you mentioned, as one, and all other internet-based technological services. We could have not been anywhere, otherwise we would have still be living in that kirana wala kind of a system, where it would have been that you go and maximum 23 years back you called about telecom, so maximum it would have been that you have to call a local kirana wala or a shopkeeper or someone and ask for some grocery materials who would be delivering you at home. You
Right.
won't have any choice to
Right.
decide what to order, where, what kind of things, right? Whereas
Right.
today, if you talk about e-commerce, right, any of these websites, you go to their site, their app, what you see is that you get a choice which is extremely customized for your need. And that is being enabled because of the significant fintech trust that we see.
One quick follow-up, Somyajit, before I go back to Mohit. In the old system, since you spoke about Kirana, I'm taking off from there. The Kirana would offer you lending in a way. He would say, okay, पैसे बाद में दे देना, a week, 10 days, a month. He would write it somewhere on a copy. But if you are undertaking fintech payments, you have to pay there and then, and you need account either money either in a linked bank account or in the wallet. So in some ways, is the fintech revolution also causing a problem on that, or does it also now provide options for lending?
There is absolute option for lending, right? Though nowadays a very used, I mean, a well-known word is BNPL. A lot of people talk about it. It is just that buy now, pay later. It's exactly what you talked about. The advantage is that over there, you were buying from that kirana and you have to take that udhar was only with that particular kirana wala. Now, in today's world, you are sitting in Delhi buying something on a website, and you can take that udhar from a an organized lending organization which is might be based out of Bombay. So and then you pay it back over 3 months or 6 months time period. So
Okay.
we have that system absolutely there in all our e-commerce platforms.
Okay. Mohit, buy now, pay later. Is it equivalent to buy now and regret later? At least, if not for all customers, but for a certain section of customers. Is that a fair?
See, I am not very gung-ho about products like buy now, pay later, primarily because they are working on sort of a regulatory arbitrage. I am a traditional payment ecosystem customer. I prefer things like credit card, debit EMI, merchant EMI, and things like that that we are used to. And coming to your point of Kirana, just imagine there is a homegrown ecosystem we had in terms of UPI, right? When we talk about e-commerce, UPI with their QR code proliferation, I mean, imagine 250 million merchants we are talking about in whole of India. They are all using Bharat Pay's QR. They are using Phone Pay's QR. They are using Google Pay QR. The Kirana system just got a new lease of life with UPI, right? And that was at the back of some new, really good fintech innovations. And not only did that lead to a lot of customers walking into their stores, there is a whole ecosystem that is running on giving lending to SMEs, MSMEs, etc. Everything, because now they have digital footprints of each of these merchants to lend them better, right?
Okay.
So for me, it's just not e-commerce. UPI has led to this industry just growing 2 3 folds, right? आपका your kirana player is so happy now with so many footfalls happening. We at Kiwi are just leveraging on credit on UPI, and today we are seeing close to 2 crore worth of transactions per day happening on the credit on UPI ecosystem.
It's a
So
good
I
point,
think
Mohit.
all
Mohit, it's a good point you speak about UPI, because while it's called the Unified Payment Interface, perhaps it is time to also call it unimaginable potential for India.
absolutely you're right.
But Mohit, explain to me, in many sectors after reforms, and I'm going a bit into history, we saw foreign companies come in and completely dominate those sectors. They brought capital,
Yes.
they brought new technology, they brought new practices, and we saw many homegrown companies either had to completely transform themselves to survive, or they fell by the wayside. In the fintech space, while there is a lot of foreign capital, how is it that it seems to be largely driven by Indians and Indian owned startups and companies? Am I looking at it the right way?
You're absolutely looking at it the right way because I'll quote in Hindi, don't mind me, but भारत को भारतीय ही समझ सकता है एक
इसीलिए
that
भारत पे
quote
भी है.
that goes. Yes, absolutely. So, and imagine there are a lot of foreign companies. Imagine if I have the numbers correct, PhonePe to become an Indian company from a Singapore company paid close to 1 billion worth of taxes, correct? So you have in India to survive in India, to understand India, you have to be Indian. There is no second thoughts about it. So even if foreign companies come, they will have to learn to play by the rules set by Indians, or in this case, let's say probably RBI, DFS, VT, or whoever. There are regulatory authorities around it. There is obviously potential for everybody to survive in India because that's how big the ecosystem is. But clearly, you'll have to play by the rules set by Indian regulations, correct?
Okay, that's an important point. Somyajit, I'm coming to you. Since you spoke about BNPL and overall in the e-commerce and the payment space, the role of handsets and the entire mobile ecosystem, cheaper data is also very, very crucial. You know, we could do a complete discussion about the backbone and what rides on it. But explain to us about, let's say for example, a global giant like Apple and what it is doing and what kind of impact it could have on the financial landscape for both the consumer as well as for the wider industry players.
See, I think, just to continue to the earlier point as well, in the fintech space, if these global giants are coming in, the impact on homegrown organizations is much less, particularly because the way we started the meeting, the discussion today, right? India is already some sort of a super giant in this space. So it's not that easy for some global company, even if it's a company of the Apple's nature, to come and suddenly, dominate the entire market. That said, there are a lot of good things that we need to see over here because
But
here,
Somyajit, hold on, because I want to break it up. You are saying it won't be easy for a company like Apple to come and dominate, but they have taken the top end of the handset market, and I know you are talking about the subject of a different subject. Why is it so? Why do you think even a giant with such massive amounts of cash reserves, a top brand globally, will not be able to crack this space in the Indian market? What is the key? What is the USP here?
see, one is the product they are bringing in terms of handsets or whatever. The other is in the fintech side. If we look into, right, for example, the Apple has decided to launch the Apple credit card. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yeah, continue. I can hear you.
They have decided to launch the Apple credit card in India in collaboration with HDFC, right? They had been running this credit card in US for some time now, in collaboration with Goldman Sachs. Now, what I'm trying to put over here is that we should not look into it as a competition, but more of a collaboration. There is a lot of things for us, the Indian players, to learn in terms
Okay.
of the best global practices from these global giants, right? HDFC, for example, right, they have collaborated with Apple for this card. What HDFC is getting is a good share of a niche customer base that will get added to their overall customers.
Okay.
Right?
Mohit,
And yes,
some time ago, Mohit Bedi, this question is for you. Some time ago, on this very show, we discussed a report which predicted a more than doubling of India's middle class and associated massive increase in consumption. And obviously, that led to a lot of questions. What will happen to urbanization? With you and then Somyajit, I want to ask you what will happen to the fintech industry in the future, given the kind of growth we are likely to see on the macro front for the overall Indian economy.
Uh, so the whole fintech industry now survives on two things, and the whole premise is based on number of customers, correct? How many customers can you target? And second is what is their consumption or spending, consumption expenditure, which is PC, how we call it in generic terms. Now, just look at, if I give you some data in terms of number of customers in India, just UPI alone has 250 unique or 350 million unique mobile users in India. That's the addressable market that is there, where you can actually do some amount of cross selling, whether it is in terms of selling a product, selling an insurance, selling a credit card, selling loans, etc. That's how big the market is. Now, just in terms of sheer number of customers out there is enough market for multiple players to play in this market. It will not never be dominated by two, three players. So there is enough room for
Why is
more
that?
innovation.
Mohit, sorry to interrupt you. Why is that? In most sectors, we say and know that the winner takes all effect. I mean, both of you know about that. But are you saying that the winner does not take all in this space? Am I correct in understanding you?
So there are two ways to look at it, right? If you are, let's say, like an Apple card, you're targeting a very niche audience, which is premium customers, 1 lakh plus handset mobile. I mean, the cost of the mobile is 1 lakh plus, etc. You're talking about super premium segment, right? Now that becomes a subset of the Indian market, middle class that I'm talking about, correct? When you take niche markets, yes, there is probably winners take it all. But when you are talking about mass market, let's take for example, Phone Pay, Google Pay, etc. Everything. There are two, three players who dominated the market. Similarly, in the acquiring ecosystem, you have Bharat Pay and other players. There are obviously three, four players that have significantly dominated the market. So it's never been, if a market size is large, it is there for players to, lot of players to play. Even if you see the payment gateway and the payment aggregator licenses, the interim approvals that RBI has given, they have given close to 35 people interim TAPG licenses, right? So there is enough. The market is so big that it will always have three, four players. Even in our segment, which is credit on UPI that Kiwi is working on, why we are the first of the block, we know there will be players in the market, and there is enough big market for two, three players to play in that market. Is what I'm trying to say. But it is when it comes to niche market, let's say like Apple, as Soumya was mentioning clearly, is that if it is a super premium market, then probably it will be one or two players taking the whole game.
Okay.
That was my.
Okay. Somyajit, I want to come to another point, and this is the growth of lending. Explain what is likely possible, because lending is the core business of our banks and even the NBFCs, and we have a fairly decently sized overall banking system. What is likely to happen as far as lending and the sort of how it goes along with fintech? What can we expect? And also to add, when you say lending, is it about taking the ability of credit to the masses, or is it to chase the overbanked middle and upper middle class?
Yeah, so I mean, it is actually to expand, right? Even our RBI and government are very clear to reach out to the last customer, last person, right, with banking, with this Jan Aadhaar banking system coming in today, and that's a big contributor why people are going cashless, right? Uh, just to tell you, in the credit card penetration in India today is how much? Around 5 to 6% only. Compare it with the big Western economies, which is around in the range of 60 to 70%. Even an economy like Brazil, there the credit card penetration is around 30%. So just think of the huge scope that we have to increase our credit penetration and reach out to additional customer segments, not only the overbanked, not only the prime, super prime customer they're talking about. Uh, uh, even a personal loan, for example, right, which we are giving to these customers, often are, I mean, the average ticket size in India is pretty low compared to many other geographies. That's where a lot of innovation driven through technology needs to come. That's a lot where we can even in fact learn from a lot of these other players in other geographies. How do we expand that?
Somyajit, since we are talking about other geographies, compare for the average viewer who is only a user of some fintech service and is not an industry expert. Where do we stand as a country, as an economy compared to others? I mean, if there was a scale of the top 10 in terms of innovation, in terms of sort of activity, where does India stand in a global ranking list?
The activity, earlier I mentioned that the fintech adoption rate is 87%. What is the adoption rate? Adoption rate basically defines the percentage of new users that we are adding in this space. It's at 87%, which means that compared to the last time period, if there were 100 users, today we have added 87 new users to our fintech ecosystem, which in the global average is in the range of 60s, 64, 65 around. So the usage of fintech, and these are like UPI payments, credit card payments, they are significantly increasing. Even if you look at the overall macroeconomic status, right, we are definitely growing strong. I mean, there are lots of talks about recession, probable recessions in the Western countries. Thankfully, we don't see the US to go into a recession as of now, but there are a lot of speculations. India stands way solid, I think. I think chances of a recession hitting India in near future is way less. Hence,
Okay.
it becomes very easy to do a lot of economic innovations as well for our geography.
Okay. Mohit, as we wind down this conversation, I want you to explain to our viewers about what is credit on UPI. We've spoken a lot about UPI and some of the numbers are completely staggering. UPI is now going to be increasingly adopted overseas. Hopefully it will become one more export from India. India is known for all positive exports versus some neighboring countries which are known for all kinds of other nefarious exports. So what is credit on UPI really, Mohit Bedi?
Yeah, so I'll explain it to you in very layman terms. And this question gets asked every time. You must be using any app, basically Google Pay, Phone Pay, or any UPI app, and you go to your.
I can say and disclose that perhaps amongst the first few thousand downloads of Bheem, I am sure I was right up there.
Absolutely. So let's say you were using Bheem app and you go to your kirane ki dukaan, as Soumya was mentioning, and you scan the QR. And moment you scan the QR, you currently get an option of paying through your savings bank account, right? So you press 10 rupees, your savings bank, the money gets deducted from savings bank account, and the merchant gets soundbox pay. He gets a sound saying, uh, "10 rupees प्राप्त हुए," as we got used to the sound now. That's the regular ecosystem. What credit on UPI will do right now, or is already doing, is that when you go to this kirane ki dukaan and you press 10 rupees payment, besides showing you the savings bank account option, it will show you a pay through credit card option, which is typically a rupee card right now. And you select rupee card, you pay 10 rupees. By the way, the merchant gets the money real time.
But Mohit, just to interrupt you very briefly to interrupt you, I don't have a RuPay card. Is it essential to have a RuPay card, credit card?
That's a classic problem. So that is where actually Kiwi comes in. We knew that there is less than 3% rupee cards in the market.
Why is that?
That because, see, debit card was something that was mandated to public sector banks, and hence rupee debit card increased. Whereas in terms of credit card, Visa Master typically dominated because of the acceptance internationally and various other uh, incomes that banks generate from Visa Master. Typically, all banks issued Visa Mastercards. RuPay wasn't the preferred one. But once we saw the opportunity of credit on UPI, we actually issue the card in 30 minutes. We the fastest we've issued a card is 3 minutes. I mean, the customer downloaded the app, filled the form, got the card, and actually started using the card. So our whole intent is to help with issuance of rupee credit cards and get people on the credit card ecosystem. So with Kiwi, like Bheem, actually, you can scan the QR, the card we've issued you in 3 minutes, you can use it at any kirani ki dukan. And by the way, like any credit card, you get 50 days interest-free credit, you get rewards, etc. Everything remains the same. But you're right, it's a new ecosystem that is developing, and let's see how it pans out. But it is another innovation that is coming straight out of India.
Absolutely, innovation coming straight out of India. Somyajit, I'll let you have
Actually,
a last word.
one last.
Yeah, go ahead quickly, Mohit. Complete your point.
Quickly, what I wanted to say was the number you said, 3,000 new startups that India witnessed. You just imagine that each startup would have done at least 2 innovations to become a startup. So that's the amount of innovation that we are seeing in India, and that's the entrepreneurial spirit that is coming out of here.
Somyajit, I'll let you have the last word on the show, and this really has to do with telling our viewers, all of this, issuing a credit card, for example, in 3 minutes would not have been possible without multiple things, including eKYC, Aadhaar. There's a whole lot that has enabled this. What would you credit, if I asked you to pick just one, the most important point for the fintech revolution that is underway in India? What would that single thing be?
UPI is what I will say. It has significantly changed and made a lot of things happen.
Okay.
And a lot of payment infrastructure that has been built today, and a lot of products which are being built on the top of it would have not been possible if this basic concept of UPI, and which is totally homegrown concept in India, right, would have not been there. Like we talked about RuPay card, Mohit was talking about RuPay card, right? The advantage why today we see, since when we talk to the end customers, we see there is a big demand of RuPay cards. Customers are asking for it, not Visa, MasterCard. And the reason is because RuPay card has that ability of paying over the UPI.
Okay. So the show discussed the UPI a lot, and it ended with UPI. And since I had given 2 alternative expansions of UPI, I am going to end the show with a third one, viewers, which is a unique product from India. And that unique product from India has been crucial in the ongoing fintech revolution. And I hope it continues to grow, continues to provide employment and earn accolades for the industry and for the country globally. Mohit, Bedi, Somyajit, Ghosh, thank you very much for your time with us today. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Easynomics, viewers. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.